and welcome back to FanCorner, your favorite nerdy, unhinged podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Cornelius Fudge in continuation with our obscure Harry Potter series. Woo! So today you have me, the face of FanCorner, and the lovely Jalaire.
Yay!
We're very excited to be back.
Yeah, we are. It's been a fat minute.
It has been a fat minute.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try this new thing where we are handing the mic back and forth. So we'll see how it goes. So you just need to grab it from me. Be aggro.
Yeah. It's mine now. No, I'm excited to talk about this. It's always fun to do like a deep dive on a character.
Yeah.
And we got really studious on this one too.
There was like two, not one,
Mm-hmm.
two very intense group study sessions.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was really fun. I love being studious in nerdy ways, not in school ways anymore.
You said when we did it last time, you were like, you'd seen a quote or something that's like the best time with your friends is the time when you're like doing intellectual shit or something.
Yeah. It was basically like, you guys are besties when you can deep dive and do intellectual kind of things, regardless of whatever topic it is.
So little did y'all know that's the real reason we started the podcast.
No, seriously.
Okay, well, so we're going to start with our high mids, and then we'll get better with this mic passing because it'll be
hopefully more natural.
All right, so you go first, Mr. Lair. What is your high mid?
Okay, my high is that last weekend I went to a rage room and I got to break shit, and it was so much fun. It was so satisfying to, in a safe environment, break a lot of glass and break a printer and a TV and go at it with Chappell Roan music playing and some Taylor Swift up in there. And my friends and I, we played the all too well 10-minute version, right? And so then when we got to the part that said fuck the patriarchy, all 5 of us had a glass bottle and threw it at the wall at that lyric.
So did y'all get to pick the music then?
Yeah, we did. There was an Alexa in the room and we got to pick it, which was awesome. So
that's
yeah. So what is your high then?
So my high is that my fairy tale is now getting illustrated. So we had the cover art and then the illustrator was like booked out, for a few months. So she's now, as of tomorrow, beginning the illustrations. So it's a big deal because like now my dedication's written, all the stuff, like it has ISBNs. Like it's just a lot more real, I guess, now. And so that's pretty cool.
That's so exciting. I love that. I'm so excited. I pre-ordered it. And you all should too. No, that's awesome. So midtime, I would say for me is kind of just seasonal depression with everything that's happening in the world, which is very sucky and very real for a lot of us. So that's my mid.
Yeah, I feel like whoever decided to, obviously this is a joke, okay, but putting like the time change where it gets dark super early and the election on the same week is a little brutal. It's fine though. Speaking of the election really quickly, we are recording this post-election. It is why we've been paused. And we just love all of you. That's all we're going to say about it. You know how we feel about it over here at FanCorner. But just know that you are loved. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's going to be okay, but you are loved. And that's what I will say. In terms of mid, for me, I was I had like a medical emergency the other day and had to get like EKGs and like blood work and just a lot of crazy stuff. And I'm okay. But I have like a lot of follow-up appointments now while they're trying to figure out what's going on. And like they have me on a million meds in the meantime to make sure, things are okay. I don't fall down and die.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like the Christmas season. It was really funny. Because I didn't post about it on my social. I feel like I often post things, but I couldn't figure out a way to do it in a way that felt real to me. But I ironically was like trying to get packages out because I have to.
Yeah.
This is my busiest time of year and I need every single cent, like truly every single cent. So I'm not complaining I was doing packages, But it is a high tense time of year. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone's like, "Where's my package?" They'll like order it and say, "Where's my package?" in the same breath. Sometimes that has definitely happened before. I haven't gotten that this year, but I mean, as we get into December, it will happen. So just a lot of pressure and stuff. So it's been like a funny little contradiction of like, yeah, I almost died, but like,
You gotta carry on, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I gotta do the things that I need to do. Guess I'll die. Dude, seriously. Like going through all the emotions of like, you know, your medical emergency and then just like the seasonal depression with everything that's going on. I've seen a couple memes where it's like, how am I expected to be going through the worst period of my life, but yet somebody's wanting me to circle back on some fucking email? You know what I mean?
And it's never anything actually important.
Yeah, no, seriously. It's like this meeting could have been an email. And then it's like, why the fuck do you want me to get back to you? There's no need.
I'm not getting back to anyone about anything anymore.
Yeah.
It's a complete joke. Like I'm like, it'll be 2 to 5 business days to respond to a friend's text.
No, period. I feel like that's kind of the period of life we're all in right now. Maybe it's just us. I don't know. If you relate, let us know.
LOL.
But on that, shall I get started?
Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So Mr. Cornelius Fudge. So we actually took this to Instagram. So we took it to y'all. And we asked y'all what you thought. You know, is Cornelius evil or is he incompetent? And it was, I kind of expected this, right? I think a lot of people really resoundingly say he was incompetent.
Yeah.
Which I, you know, as we've now deep dived it very much, I actually don't think the text supports.
No, for real. I think like we both, kind of like a lot of times when we do these deep dives on characters, we have maybe like one kind of opinion, and then when we actually deep dive, it changes. And so when we like looked at the text and everything, I feel like my mind definitely changed from going from a surface level kind of like, yeah, he's an idiot, to being like, no, there's more going on.
Yeah, I think I suspected it, but it was still so much more glaring than I realized.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm pretty sure he's evil. But even I was like, oh shit, no, I didn't realize he literally knew that Voldemort wasn't dead, even back in book 3.
Yeah. And honestly, and he was just acting so sus, and like the ways he would behave, it was so subtle. And so like the bits of text that we get from like his interactions with Harry, we would like, it's so subtle. But then when you look at it, the big picture, it's like, oh, he knew what was going on.
Yeah. So first, we're going to do this thematically. So first, we're going to talk about weaponized incompetence. Shout out to the Instagram story user who used that term for Cornelius, because I was like,
it's so perfect.
I don't know why I hadn't thought of it. Like the girly pop way of like saying exactly what I was trying to say. So let's talk about how he's weaponizing incompetence. And I think this is why everyone thinks that he's just an idiot, because that's kind of how he's, I think, hoping that he will be portrayed in a real way.
Yeah, I feel like that's how he wants to be perceived. And then it kind of works because that's how we are meant to perceive him, at least in the beginning as well, you know?
Yeah, so the very first knowledge we have about Cornelius Fudge is from Hagrid. Hagrid's talking about Cornelius in the very first book. Like, Harry's just learned about the Wizarding World. He's like, yeah, we have a government system. And
magic, all that fun stuff.
And he literally calls Cornelius, I'm going to mess it up, a Dunders?
I think so. Yeah, something like that.
And he's like, he's such an idiot. He basically has to write Dumbledore a letter every single morning. Like, he's pelting Dumbledore with letters, with asking for advice every day. Because Dumbledore's, it kind of implied Dumbledore's the real one running the country.
Like, I'm pretty sure it was implied that, I think we know for a fact that Dumbledore was asked to be minister, like multiple times, and he always turned it down. And Cornelius Fudge was already working in the ministry. I have it noted somewhere that he had like a different position, and then just, I don't know how, but kind of ended up being the minister. Oh, he was a junior minister in the Department of Magical Catastrophes. We learned that in book 3.
And I'm sure he was some other things too. But we know at least of one role. So I think this is the perfect example, actually, of weaponized incompetence, is instead of like every single morning, if that's even at all true what Hagrid is claiming, that is batshit crazy.
No, seriously.
I'm not saying don't ask for advice. Like, it is wise as anyone in power to ask smarter or even other perspectives for their opinions and thoughts on things. But to be really just pelting Dumbledore with owls, I think just goes to show that, like, is he even putting in the work? Or is it just like every single issue he's like running off to Dumbledore, what should I do? And it's like, did you even bother to do your own homework? I don't think so.
No, it's giving insecure.
It's definitely giving insecure. It's also, it reminds me of those men who, I don't even know if it is insecure though, actually. I'm taking this back because I almost think it's like, it's weaponized incompetence, right? It's that classic example of a man pretending he's really bad at doing the dishes, so you never ask him to do it again. You know what I mean? I think he's like, doesn't want to put in the work to actually run the country. He just wants the power. And so
that's very true.
So I think he just like hands that off, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me. So he doesn't have to do anything.
No, seriously. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Because like on initial thinking, like, oh, it's insecure. He wants Dumbledore's advice. But then it's laziness, because if he's asking that often, well, what is he even doing? You know, like it doesn't make sense that if he's the one leading the wizarding world, why would he do that so often? You know,
the math is not mathing.
Yeah, period.
Especially because, like, anyway, won't get into it too much. But some other examples we see of this weaponized incompetence, I want to get into a little bit here. In book 3, Harry has this situation where he blows his aunt up.
Yeah.
And she flies away. It's very epic.
Yeah.
She deserved it, honestly.
No, yeah, for real. She deserved it.
But Cornelius catches up with Harry when Harry arrives at the Leaky Cauldron. And Cornelius mentions that the aunt and uncle have been talked to. And he's like, don't worry, you can still go back next summer. And you can tell, it's kind of implied that maybe even Cornelius was there to talk to the aunt and uncle. Yeah. He clearly seems to know they're quite unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely seems to know, because Harry even comments on it, being like, why is he, the Minister of Magic, getting involved in a student's affairs, basically? And like Fudge is all like panicking, like, oh my gosh, you're safe, that's all that matters, like, get some food, like, blah blah blah. And Harry's like, sir, don't I deserve to be punished? You know, like, I did something wrong. And Fudge like literally brushes it off and is like, whatever, which is like insane.
It's kind of insane. Also, I mean, I do think it's true that there is an emotional aspect. The whole underage wizarding thing. This is a sidebar.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a sidebar. The whole wizarding underage thing is so interesting because really it's just like if magic is being used where it shouldn't be used.
Yeah.
So you're really only punished if you have Muggle parents. Otherwise, it's expected that your wizarding family would make you in trouble. Like they don't know that it wasn't Harry that performed the hover charm in his second year, that it was Dobby the house elf. Yeah. So really, it just punishes Muggle-born. So the whole law is just like kind of a fucky thing that doesn't make any sense.
No, it's so fair.
Doesn't make sense. But
Harry's trying to be responsible. And yeah, Fudge just kind of brushes it off. And in the text, it's like Harry mentions, Fudge was really awkward and got really awkward when he brought up like legal matters like that, you know?
And we know as the audience that this is because he's trying to cover up for his own ineptitude. If Harry Potter going missing was Sirius Black on the run, which is an ineptitude of Cornelius's administration because he's allowing the Dementors to be the guardians, perfect example of how he's inept. So he is covering up for his own shit. But I find it really interesting. So when he's talking about how he went to the Dursleys, and he says he can go back, Harry says, I don't want to go back. I hate it there.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because it's this neglected child, like reaching out in a very real way, like, hey, this situation's not great. Mm-hmm. Any follow-up questions at all from Fudge would have quickly unearthed abuse.
Oh, 100%. And even like with that, Harry asks for Cornelius Fudge to sign his Hogsmeade permission slip, and Fudge turns him down because he's like, I'm not your family, you know? But it's a moment of Harry trying to reach out and be like, okay, well, certainly because you're a higher power authority, you can let me go on this field trip, basically.
Which, okay, so that I'm all for some Cornelius slander. That's what this whole episode's about.
Yeah.
But to be fair, with Sirius Black out,
Oh, I mean, no, it's still fair.
it was a good thing he didn't sign that permission slip.
No, 100%. It is a good thing. But I'm more like thinking of how Harry's trying to have some sort of kind of stability with like, I don't want to go home. No one would sign my permission slip. Can you please do it? Like, obviously it was the right move. Harry shouldn't have gone out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, Cornelius doesn't ask any follow-up questions.
No.
Like, obviously there's a good reason he doesn't want Harry out at Hogsmeade.
It's him to not go out in Diagon Alley too.
Yeah, not past Diagon Alley, right? Not into the Muggle side.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because he says, well, I'm sure your aunt and uncle aren't really that bad. I'm sure they love you. And because I think he interacted with them and he knows better, he says, really deep down.
Yeah.
And that shows me that he knows something's wrong with the situation now that he's met them. I highly doubt that Dumbledore has explained his reasoning on why it's important for Harry to be with his aunt and uncle. And so it's like, where's the magical CPS? Where's the internal investigation? And maybe Dumbledore would have then quickly convinced him not to. But the fact that Cornelius doesn't ask any follow-up questions, I think is the most perfect Cornelius Fudge moment I've ever seen. Because it's like he doesn't actually care to ensure the child is safe.
No, seriously, he'll like act like he cares for like 2 seconds. And we see this in other instances a little bit where it could be perceived as him caring, but he actually does not give a fuck.
Yep. Because he is weaponizing his incompetence.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We in this same scene, there's a funny example where it's mentioned about the hovercraft charm. Harry's like, well, when the hovercraft charm got performed, I got threatened. So why isn't this a big deal? When he's having that conversation, he mentions that it was a house elf to the Minister of Magic himself.
Yeah. And
with how their magic system works, as messed up as it is, I understand why the Ministry didn't know that. But what's crazy to me is Cornelius is just like, oh, water under the bridge. Like, he doesn't think if he wasn't an asshole, if he wasn't a lazy piece of shit, he would get that expunged from Harry's record.
Totally. And then we see later on, like, Fudge pulls that all out under the rug and throws it in Harry's face in book 5.
Absolutely, he does. And so it's like this really funny moment of like, he, at all points when he is confronted with facts or figures or logic or like things that like as a person of power he should look into, he just never does.
No.
And we see that consistently throughout the series.
Yes, totally.
Okay, so our next sort of section is power perception.
Mm-hmm.
Cornelius Fudge is queen of attention.
100%. We see it in how he behaves around others. He wants to be perceived as powerful. We see it in how he dresses as well. Yeah, I'll let you take on that.
Let's talk about how he dresses.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those sort of subtle character nods to who someone is. It is so interesting. Cornelius is consistently described as either in a pinstripe cloak or a pinstripe suit. And then he has the classic lime bowler green hat, which is very out there, right?
So out there.
Very intense. And then often like a purple, like cloak tie situation. And so what that says to me is pinstripes, I think, are often associated with sort of powerful men. But also, this isn't the kind of powerful man who's like in a really well-cut suit or,
whatever
wizarding cloak that just makes him look powerful. It's like pinstripes and the lime green. These are statements, okay? He doesn't want any question when he walks into the room, not because of his presence or anything he's doing with his actions, but he needs to flamboyantly go out there and be like, I actually am the most important person in this room. And I think that's what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's literally a visual cue to signify others how important he is. Like, to anywhere he's at. People could like not realize it's the minister, but they would just by how he's dressed because it's so consistent.
So this power perception, like how he's obsessed with power, I think it's, we see this multiple times, but I want to talk about the example in book 2 of Hagrid.
Oh, yeah.
So the Chamber of Secrets is open, setting the stage, and multiple people at this point have been like frozen or petrified. And so Cornelius has to do something. And we see him, Harry's under the cloak of invisibility with Ron. We see Cornelius come into Hagrid's hut, and he literally is so physically awkward. And he says to Hagrid, yeah, I have no choice because of your past experiences. I'm sorry. But we'll give you a full apology, but you're going to Azkaban.
No, seriously, he literally, like, in the text, he says, I'm under a lot of pressure, got to be seen doing something, but I've got to take him, and be doing my duty. Like, hello?
And literally, it keeps talking about how, like, he keeps shifting around.
Yeah.
We'll issue a full apology. He knows Hagrid isn't guilty.
Yeah, he knows that. He's literally like, yeah, I gotta do something, so I guess it makes the most sense to take you away, but it won't be forever. Huh?
And to Azkaban,
Yeah.
where there are Dementors that are literally torture devices, essentially. So not only we're taking you away from the school, and I know you're not guilty, I'm going to torture you, actually. Like, no, actually, what's crazy is, like, no hearing.
Oh, yeah, just straight up gone. Only because of, like, they're like, oh, you know, you happen, basically because of, like, stuff that happened in the past when the Chamber of Secrets was open before. And it's like, oh, Hagrid was here. Had, you know, bam. And
I understand why they have to look into Hagrid. I totally do. But, like, to take him to Azkaban when he clearly knows he's not guilty is so unhinged. And it just shows that I have to, be seen doing something. Just shows that what matters to him more than actual justice or stopping the problem, what matters to him more absolutely is this perception of him in the community.
totally. And I think it's kind of wild that, like, it's, you know, as far as we're aware of, it's literally it's just Azkaban. There's not even anything kind of in between. It's so absolutist, you know? And, like, the fact that there wasn't even a hearing, it seems like they kind of don't like to do hearings anyways, you know, in general. So it's the fact that it's like, yeah, I guess, Azkaban. And so it's like, makes sense why, no wonder Harry, like, in book 3, and even book 2, when he's told, about doing underage magic, he's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Azkaban because that's the only place you could go, and it sucks.
Well, yeah, the whole system is clearly corrupt, and Fudge is in charge of the system, so he's not even trying any sort of reform, which is interesting as well. But yeah, no, the Azkaban system, I mean,
That's another topic.
Sidebar, but yeah, an interesting sidebar, and that is clearly corrupt. I do think he should have had a hearing. I think Cornelius isn't following proper law or procedure.
Oh,
because we know
he's not.
Yeah, because we know with how the Wisdom and Got works, there's supposed to be a trial first before you go into Azkaban.
Mm-hmm.
So that's crazy. No, there's definitely a lot of crazy things going on here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this power perception is also really interesting and kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, where, like, Fudge pretends to be the cool guy. Fudge is so obsessed with appearing powerful that when Harry is at the Quidditch World Cup,
I was just thinking this.
Fudge literally is using Harry as a pawn in his own political game. He's, like, putting his hand around him. He's, like, bringing him up to the Bulgarian prime minister. He's like, look, I know Harry Potter, hair flip, the most important kid of all time. Like, he's literally using him as a little power play.
No, seriously, because, like, in the text, it says that he shook Harry's hand in a fatherly fashion, which is such an interesting choice of words. And he's literally, like you said, using Harry as a pawn, but he's also using him as, like, a trophy, like a boost in ego to be like, yeah, I know Harry Potter. He's right here, like, he's the famous guy. And then, like, when, the other prime minister that you mentioned, he finally, like, clicks and realizes who it is. He's like, oh my gosh. Okay. It's like, why do we need to do that? So he did, we know Fudge did it to make himself look better.
Yeah, it's power politics, just 101. He is using any means possible to increase his own perceived political power. Doing it with a child, though, is next level crazy. Fudge does not care about Harry that much. We know that already. Like, he doesn't look into the aunt and uncle situation at all. He doesn't expunge his record at that point from the house elf situation. He doesn't care about Harry, but the second people are perceiving how he's interacting with Harry, it's all smiles.
Yeah, the second it would fit him for his own agenda is when he's like 180s and it's like, oh, let me adore Harry. And Harry's so like, what?
And I think that's something Cornelius is really good at, right? Cornelius has Riz.
Yeah.
Like, he's a charismatic leader at the end of the day. And you have to be to get away with something like weaponized incompetence, right? Because even like with the classic example of like men doing this, like, oh, I don't know how to do the dishes. I'm 35, but I'm so bad at it.
Laundry.
Oh my gosh, when they like ruin their wife's clothes, like, 'cause they put like a red sock in with it's like, no, you did not do that. Yeah. You know, like, if it's too obvious, then people are going to be like, what? You have to have Riz to pull it off. And I think he clearly has the Riz.
He totally does.
100%.
And it's also clear that like he doesn't well, maybe this is something we could talk about later as far as like, it's not just Harry. Yeah, this could lead into our next thing.
Okay.
So I'll let you go ahead first.
Okay. Okay. So speaking of this power perception, obviously Voldemort comes back. Book 4, he is risen. I should not have said it that way. Immediate regrets. That's all I'm going to think about for the rest of this episode is how I'm an idiot. Literally, Cornelius's reaction to Voldemort's back. They're in the healing wing. What is it called?
The hospital wing.
Oh my gosh, the healing wing. I don't know. Okay, so they're there, and he finds out that Voldemort's back, and his first reaction, actually, interestingly enough, is if we go around saying that, we're going to lose everything that we worked for the last 13 years. It's not really about if it's true or not. It's not even, and obviously, I think the movies do just portray it as just he is stupid. That's how the movies portray this. Is he's just like, that's literally not possible, Queen. But in the books, his first reaction is, if I go out and say that, we'll lose everything we've worked for. He himself knows if he let Voldemort rise under his regency, his prime ministership, however you're supposed to say that, right? He will be seen as an inept leader, and he will lose his political power. And that's what he's most concerned about. And I think that just perfectly encapsulates everything about him.
No, seriously, I agree. I agree. Were you talking about the end of like book 5 or
the end of book 4?
Okay. I was thinking ahead about book 5.
Sure. Yeah, no, like Dumbledore's like, here's all these things that we need to do because Voldemort's back, and Cornelius says, we'll lose everything if we do that.
Yeah.
That we worked for. Like, he's trying to get Dumbledore on his side, essentially, to be like, that's a terrible idea.
I literally, when you said that, getting Dumbledore on his side, it made me think of the Hamilton song where they go, it must be nice to have Washington on your side. So picture that with Dumbledore.
Dumbledore, Washington,
you know,
diff, right?
Yeah, no, seriously. And even then, like, I'm now just making myself laugh with that funny visual. But even like at the end of book 5, when like Fudge has like he sees it. He had like he was in denial, maybe, like not really, but acting in denial,
sure,
perceived denial, right? About Voldemort being back. He like sees what's going on at the end of book 5, and he literally says, it doesn't seem possible. How could this be? Right? And it's like, well, no shit, duh. You've seen what's been going on.
Well, what's also really interesting about that is, and we totally glossed over this, Cornelius knows it's possible that Voldemort's alive. Before Voldemort does come back, in book 3, Harry overhears Cornelius talking to a bunch of the professors at Hogwarts. Mm-hmm. And literally Cornelius says, because Madame Rosmarde is like, well, what do you think Sirius Black's goal is? Mm-hmm. And is it to find Voldemort? Mm-hmm. And, or he who must not be named,
Whatever.
And then Cornelius says, you know, if he's still out there, he's only dangerous with a follower. Like, he seems to have that,
Like,
he
he
has
gets
that
it.
understanding, which is true. That's what made Voldemort dangerous again, is once Peter Pettigrew got to him, they just had the wrong guy. But so he clearly knows it's possible that Voldemort is still out there. He also admits that. We see it in book 6, but like it would have happened in book 3.
Yeah.
When he's talking to the Muggle Prime Minister, and he's like, yeah, Sirius Black is out, and you know, if he goes to Voldemort, we're afraid that Voldemort will rise again. So like, he clearly knows this is a possibility. And that's why I don't believe that he was truly in denial that Voldemort wasn't back.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really was about power.
No, 100%, because it's so interesting when we look at, like, literally the first chapter of book 6 is a scene in a chronological way of Fudge talking to the Prime Minister about things, and he starts off being like, yeah, I'm the Prime Minister, like, welcome to being the new Prime Minister, this is who I am, wizards exist, yada yada, you probably won't ever hear from me. And then it notes in the text that, like, the Prime Minister is like, why does this man keep showing up, like, every year? You know, like, okay, I thought I would never see him again, you know? And then finally, like, and he warns him about, like, Sirius Black and, like, you know, Voldemort's back and, like, whatever, and comes in and is just like, the Prime Minister notes how, like, each time he sees him, he's like more and more just like afraid and, you know, run down and whatever. Frazzled, yes. And eventually then it's like, yeah, goodbye. Like Cornelius Fudge tells him that somebody else is going to replace him, you know, and then immediately meets Rufus, what's his flip?
Grimjoy.
Yeah. I never know how to say his last name.
I don't know if I'm saying it right.
It's okay.
Apparently, we did a whole episode where I kept talking about Blast and Skirts. And apparently that's not how you say it.
Blast and it's Scroots?
I hate that.
Ew.
Pretend I don't know that. I'm just going to say it the way I want to.
Yeah. So, like, that whole chapter implies that Fudge has known this whole time that something could happen, and he just was so much more concerned about how he was perceived and power hungry and, you know, everything else we've discussed rather than actually caring about the situation at hand.
Absolutely. So in that, let's talk about his prejudice, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Cornelius obviously is a minister of magic for a long time. I kept saying Prime Minister, please forgive me. Magical Prime Minister. It's
the same thing.
But so he's Minister of Magic for 13 years. And during that time, the laws that we know of that have been passed are things like dramatic, like, reduction in centaur lands. Not just once. Like, Hagrid mentions that this has happened multiple times, and that's why the centaurs are starting to get more and more anti-human, right? Is because they're literally being just rounded the fuck up and told, oh, here's your box for whatever, even though it doesn't affect us, we're just doing this. I think that's a perfect example of, like, the kind of stuff that was getting passed under his administration.
No, 100%. Yeah.
And then also under his prejudice, and this is the best example, in my opinion, in like a, can you believe he said that kind of way? So Barty Crouch Sr. Attacks Crumb. Like, Crumb's like, I was attacked. Like, what the hell was going on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And literally, they're talking about it up in the headmaster's office, and Harry overhears it because Harry overhears everything. Like, yeah, that's just the plot, honestly. But so Harry overhears this, where the Prime Minister is like, well, wasn't it near the Beauxbaton carriage? Do you know what she is? Talking about the headmistress.
Yeah.
Because she's half giant.
Mm-hmm.
Implying that she must have been the one to attack Crumb because she is half giant, even though that doesn't align with Crumb's story or any sort of facts on the ground. Literally just based off the fact that she is, which I love. Okay, actually, can we talk about how excellent this was on Dumbledore's part?
No, for real.
Because he's like, do you know what she is? And Dumbledore's like, he pretends to be stupid, right? Which I think we should always do when people are being racist. He's like, a great headmistress? Like, he just pretends he doesn't understand which he does, what Fudge is getting at. So Fudge has to say out loud, how he's being prejudiced of saying, well, she's a half giant. And I know you have a weakness for them because of Hagrid, but they're violent.
Right.
Like, he has to say his racism out.
No, seriously. And then, like, a follow-up comment made by Dumbledore was, I think it's possible that it's you who are prejudiced, Cornelius. Mic drop.
Wand drop.
Yeah. Shut up.
Oh, they're, sidebar again. Have y'all seen Dark Lord Funk? Have you seen that?
What the hell is that? Okay.
Just gonna have a mini bonus episode of us having a live reaction to Dark Lord Funk.
Okay.
I don't know if that's allowed, but like we should do it. So it's basically, it was like, do you remember when Uptown Funk came out by Bruno Mars?
Of course.
So some BYU students with way too much budget, like why was it so well done, did a version that's like Harry Potter. It's like Dark Lord Funk, and it's Voldemort singing and like his followers. And at the end, he says something, and then he like drops his, like, instead of where you would drop your mic, he drops his wand.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I vaguely remember something like that, but my brain probably was like, nah, fam. And put that in like the archive.
It's literally the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I think about it at least once a week.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's so funny. Anyways, so back on topic, like, besides, like, this moment of prejudice that we see, we also know.
Actually, before we move on, can I say one more thing about it? I thought you were going to say it, so I was going to let you say it, but before we move on, don't lose your thought, though.
It might be gone.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm the worst.
Dude,
so on the same topic, he says about when he's blaming Madame Maxine for this attack based on zero evidence.
No, it's
just vibes. Harry, like I said, has overheard this. So when he comes in the room, Cornelius says to Harry, and he's acting really nice, as he does. He's like, oh, Harry, my lad, my chap, my homie. My brother in a Wizard Christ. You were there when it happened, weren't you? And Harry's like, you discovered him. And Harry's literally like, yeah, and I have to say, Madame Maxine would have one hell of a time hiding, wouldn't she? Because she's so tall.
Yeah.
And literally Cornelius immediately gets pissy and is like, shouldn't you be getting back to class?
And then I remember, like, don't they leave? And Dumbledore's like, hang out here, which is so funny. I also, even before they started talking about that, they had mentioned, they touched on, like, Barty Crouch, the whole situation there. And they also mentioned Bertha Jorkins being missing. And they're like, basically, Cornelius is like, whatever. She gets lost. And showing, like, it's not just he doesn't care about Harry and everybody else. He literally does not care about other people that are important, especially a woman.
I was going to say that, especially a woman, because it's kind of a sexist narrative, right? Like, oh, well, people in her department say she's a little ditzy. She's a little absent-minded. She could get lost on her way to the store.
Yeah, he literally says, Bertha's perfectly capable of getting herself lost. I agree. We would have expected to have found her by now.
Literally just sexism. He's like, it doesn't quite make sense, but sexism.
Yeah.
He doesn't need logic, right? Because he's so fucking prejudiced. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand. Oh, wait, actually, what were you going to say? You were going to bring up another point about prejudiceness, a different scene.
No, I was just going to kind of talk about how it leads into more prejudice that we see, like, in Hogwarts, throughout book 5 with everything else that Umbridge, like, does with, the decrees and stuff, because it's all technically through the minister. So,
yeah, it's all personally approved by Fudge, is my understanding. So, until she gets ultimate authority. So, for a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's definitely very involved in all those decrees. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't remember what else. So, let's move on.
I was just going to say, so we have the Centaur lands against giants. He also actually technically has, like, a really cruel, snide remark about squibs as well.
Yes.
Barry looks down on them.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. No. Because, like, literally in book 5, when they're having the hearing, he literally, like, is so adamant that there's no witnesses to, Harry's Patronus, right? And, Dumbledore, I'm pretty sure, is like, oh, well, we do have a witness. and Fudge gets all angry. He's like, no, there's not, whatever, and and so he sends Percy to go get Mrs. Fig and brings her in, and she's, gives her testimony, and she's like, basically questions like, why does her testimony matter? And she's like, well, I'm a squib. And he basically doesn't believe her that she is one. And then is all like, squibs can't see dementors, and is like gaslighting her own experience in front of everybody.
Yeah, he literally, the exact quote was, incidentally, can squibs even see dementors?
Yeah, which is so fucked up. And he's literally just like so angry at being given like evidence and whatnot that I believe it isn't until Hannah Abbott's aunt mentioned something.
Madam Bones.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Whatever. So what it is, the random Hufflepuff girl's relative, okay, was like mentions like, how she basically believes what's being said, and then I think she points out some extra laws that, would validate what he's saying, or like why they should listen. And then it brings it to a vote, and then we get the vote, then, Harry can go free. And the entire time, Fudge is just up his ass angry the whole time.
Yeah, the squib comment specifically, I think, fits under what we're talking about right now. Prejudice. No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. No, you're popping off. It's great. But I'm just circling us right back to it, though, because it just shows, like, when faced with any sort of thing at all that questions his worldview, he has to throw people under the bus. That witness intimidation of, like, I'm going to make sure it go, because he tells her to go, they're going to double check her parentage. Yes. So pretty much implying that she wasn't born to wizarding parents because she's not registered, because squibs aren't registered, only witches and wizards are. And then also the fact that he even brings up, can they even see it? Which, yes, gaslights her experience, absolutely. But I think it just goes to show for him what we've been talking about. If you are not a witch or wizard, and really mostly wizard, probably, if we're being honest, he's not going to take you seriously. And I think it's that perfect example of sort of, because it's pretty heavily implied he's a white man. And I think in his worldview, and we see this a lot in real life too, if anybody has rights that isn't him, in his mind, he's losing rights. Do you know what I mean? And so he has to constantly have this prejudice against them because it makes him feel more important, the same way his outfits make him feel more important, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree.
Yeah. So, squibs. So getting into competence, though. So that's our next theme. And then we're going to really talk about a lot of what you said at the hearing. Yeah, Cornelius is really effectively using his power in the 5th book specifically. And that's how we know that it was weaponized incompetence to begin with, is suddenly he's all queen of politics.
Yeah. Like, suddenly he knows what he's talking about, right? Air quotes. Because we've seen him be, perceived as like this idiot to Harry, that's like kind of like, okay, this is weird, whatever. Harry knows something's sus. But then in book 5, it all just 180s. And it's totally because, book 5 is so crucial anyways because of everything that happens in the book. But I feel like it's the like the most crucial point where it's like, oh, Voldemort's back. He knows he's back, is in denial, maybe, question mark, whatever, wants to cover it up. And it's finally like, okay, like going to actually act like he knows what he's doing. And that's why things are so like harsh at Hogwarts and like all these other things that are passed and whatnot. So we're starting to see him actually act like he knows what's up to some degree.
Yeah. So the end of 4, when he finds out that Voldemort's back from Dumbledore, Dumbledore's like, we need to do XYZ. We need to get the giants involved. We need to get whatever. And literally Cornelius reacts to that, not by asserting once again that Voldemort can't be back. That's not what he says, actually. He says, I can't, because Dumbledore was like, you need to send emissaries to start relations with the giants so they don't join his side again. And his first reaction as Fudge was like, well, we can't do that because people hate them. Like, how would I be perceived, right? Like, that prejudice is really coming out again. And him and Dumbledore have this huge blowing up where literally Dumbledore's like, well, if you're just gonna do this, then like, I'm not gonna help you anymore. Like, we're done.
Yeah, period.
And Cornelius is like, literally fine. It's war, bitch. And so book 5, you're exactly right. He starts wielding his political power very effectively, starting with what happens with the Dementor attack. Harry's attacked by a Dementor, uses a Patronus charm, and is brought to full trial.
Yeah, with the full Wizengamot.
Which actually, interestingly enough, Fudge tries something else first.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they, before the full trial, the original letter that he got from the ministry was like, actually, you're immediately expelled and we're going to show up in 5 minutes to blow your fucking wand up, you little bitch.
Yeah.
Is what it says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot that.
It's crazy. It's just literally like, Dumbledore's like, yeah, I had to remind you that's illegal. But what's crazy is he almost got away with it. You know, and I think during the whole trial, that's what I was really caught up with, is like, if Harry didn't have the best legal representation known to mankind, which is Albus Dumbledore, someone with presence, bitch, and clearly knows the laws very well. He quotes multiple laws at Fudge as Fudge tries to do illegal things that we will break down. But if Harry hadn't had all those things, I have no doubt that he would have, like, been found guilty and lost his wand, which is insane because Fudge is using his power very well.
No, totally. And even like as a little baby precursor to that, like we also learn that when Mr. Weasley is taking Harry to his trial, they changed the location and time, like right before it's like, you know, thankfully they were there early, but that all got switched up so they could like, it was so intentional that it's like, oh, if you don't show up to your own trial, of course you're guilty, you know?
Well, and his representation might not have showed up in time, right? Dumbledore himself.
Yeah.
Because he never got an owl that said that the time had been changed.
Yeah, nobody did. They found out via word of mouth.
And so it's like both of them, like literally, yeah, that's a perfect example of Fudge using anything within his tool belt to enact his political power because he is competent.
Right. And also like, another like just cherry on top of just with that instance, they intentionally have the trial in the dungeons where you can't even get to via like wizarding elevator. You have to take extra steps, and it's like the trial room is like places like Mr. Weasley mentions they hadn't been used in years, and Harry recognizes them as the place where Barty Crouch Jr.'s trial was from the Pensieve. So we know that it's like a high profile place to have these trials, and it just adds more to the ominence of what is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. He's using anything he can to sort of one up, right? Because if you can put this in the jurors, not jurors, the members of the Wizengamot's mind, that like he's guilty, right? This is the same place where, yeah, we tried Death Eaters, right? We are laying this on as thick as possible. He also tries to say no to Mrs. Fig being a witness. He says, we don't have time to listen to people. And literally Dumbledore's like, what? Well, according to blah, 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 actually, they're entitled to a witness.
Yeah, seriously.
And Madam Bones, to your point, is like, yeah, that's true, you dumbass. You know, so we have to give her props too, is like not only Dumbledore really there, but it's like people having to stand up to the Minister of Magic himself, right? To be like, oh, that's illegal, sir. That's actually not how this is supposed to go. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And also, like, it makes me think he probably was also not wanting to listen to, who is the character we just said? Mrs. Bones.
Mrs. Fig?
No, not Mrs. Fig. Madam Bones. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if we ever knew her first name. But, she's also a woman. So it's like, of course, Fudge is not wanting to listen to her either.
I think Fudge doesn't want to listen to anything.
No, it's so fair. But we just have these prominent examples of him not listening to women.
Very prominent. And, you know, when you think about advisors Fudge has had through the years, you really can't help but think of Lucius Malfoy, who is seen with Fudge constantly throughout the series. And I think it's because he's pure blood.
Oh,
and he has a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Because we even see that in, what was it? which book was it? Where, oh my gosh, we're like, no, it's okay. The book, everything's becoming mush. It's when Dumbledore is being taken away because the board of governors say, Dumbledore's got to go.
Oh, that's Chamber of Secrets.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so like Lucius literally shows up and is like, Dumbledore, you gotta go, because all the school governors signed this thing, which we all know, like, Lucius basically blackmailed them to signing, and Fudge is kind of like, no, and like,
what choice do any of us have if Dumbledore is not here to protect the kids?
Yeah, and lets Lucius just do what he wants. So I totally believe that, like, Lucius has more power over the minister in, like, nefarious ways.
Yeah, which is really interesting too, because Cornelius, I mean, as we were talking about in book 5, clearly is using all kinds of political tools, including illegal ones. Like, his power is such he thinks he can get away with it, and he does in a lot of it. He's using all these sorts of tools, but he doesn't do that in book 2 to save Dumbledore's ass or Hagrid's ass.
Yeah,
because like at the end of the day, he's a lazy piece of shit asshole that just cares about power perception. And so, like, I know that it's the board of governors who do control that. Malfoy is absolutely correct in that. But you're telling me the Minister of Magic, because Dumbledore doesn't come back until Harry defeats the Chamber of Secrets. So that tells me that, like, Cornelius wasn't even trying on the DL, like, after that to, like, rally the troops to investigate this, to do anything.
No.
He's just like, he knows it's bad for the school. He literally is like, this is a bad idea, guys. Like, and so he does say that. But then he doesn't do anything that we can discern at all. And I'm pretty sure he didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure it's definitely like a perception thing because he doesn't want to look bad to Lucius Malfoy. So he just folds. Period.
As he does. Okay, so speaking of competence.
Yeah.
Not only does he exert his political power to say, no, you can't have a witness, right? Which, I mean, ultimately didn't work. A lot of these things didn't work. But again, it's only because Harry had the best legal representation possible.
Yeah. Harry would not have had any clue under any other circumstances.
So Cornelius also throws in his face the hovercraft charm from year 2. And Dumbledore's like, I have that house elf. I'll bring him here. And he's like, I'm not listening to house elves, which I do think shows, again, that prejudice. Yeah. But it was really interesting because it's like, he's throwing anything possible at them. And he's literally like, laws can be changed. That really scary line. And we see him change the laws, right? That's how we get Umbridge. And as Umbridge is there, it increasingly gets worse and she gets more and more power. And I think it just perfectly shows that, like, we cannot argue that Fudge is incompetent while seeing how effectively he truly took over Hogwarts.
No, 100%. I agree.
So the next time anyone calls him an idiot, Fudge an idiot, I'm going to need you to sit with that because I think it gives him... I was going to leave this for the conclusion, so oh well. But I think pretending Fudge is an idiot sort of gets rid of his accountability.
I would agree.
Like we're like, oh, well, he was just a cute little idiot. It's not his fault. And it's like, no, hold the bitch accountable.
No, seriously. Because if we perceive him as an idiot, it's dismissing everything else he did in the thinking like, oh, he didn't know any better, but he did. Like, it's very clear that he did. And like I kind of said at the beginning, I was kind of in the boat like, yeah, he's a horrible person and, he is an idiot. But then after, like, doing the research for this, it's, like, really scary how, like, he is intelligent. He's strategic. He's very strategic because of these points we pointed out. He was very strategic in how things happened, and it was, like, obviously was not great. Everything that happened, not great. But he had intentions, right?
Yeah, and it's really scary too because so not only is he wielding, like, the judicial system essentially to try to enact things, and then he uses the legislative system by passing new laws to control Hogwarts, right? But then he also really carries court in the public favor by, like, putting a lot of pressure on the Daily Prophet. Although they let Rita Skeeter write.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, long before this all happened, they were letting that gossip columnist piece of shit woman produce work. And so obviously they don't really care about integrity anyway. But, all those jokes getting made about Harry you know, a tall tale worthy of Harry Potter and stuff like that, just very much points out that like Fudge is actively using like the power of like essentially his Riz, right? Like he is controlling how people are perceiving the situation too with the media. So he's really going for all of the possible ways to control people.
I also literally just thought of this about how in book 5 also I feel like we were told somewhere that Fudge believed that Dumbledore was secretly building an army, right? Hence the DA happened, right? And that he's scared that Dumbledore is building something to go against him. And obviously our, you know, ragtag team of students do that because they want to defend themselves. And I was thinking of how, like, if Fudge is scared of that, it means he would lose control and lose this intense control grip that he has on Hogwarts and trying to scrambly control everything with, like, you know, everything on a tight leash. And that by Dumbledore having a secret army would undo that.
If Dumbledore was clearly actually putting together an army, that is like insurrection, like just full stop. Everyday citizens can't have an army. However, I don't think Cornelius even really thought that. I think he was using that as an excuse to do the corrupt things he was doing. He damn well knew that wasn't true, but it was the best way for him to go about exerting his own control over the situation, because at the end of the day, he has to explain to other members of the Ministry of Magic why the fuck he's doing what he's doing. And it comes kind of back down to that case at the beginning of the book. You know, Harry's obviously found not guilty, but there were over half a dozen plus Umbridge and Cornelius of the Wisdom and Gumma that were like, yeah, you're guilty. That's crazy how many people he got on his side. And that just goes to show, I think, like his power of sort of convincing people just through Riz and those political tools he's using. You don't have to have logic on your side
Totally.
to win.
Exactly. And I also wonder if maybe I would think this a little bit, you know, that maybe some of it they sided with him because you don't want to necessarily be on the opposite side of the minister. So some fear there as well, thinking like, oh, I could lose my job if I go against what the minister is wanting to declare.
Absolutely. And we see that with Arthur, right? He starts to get afraid of how he's getting perceived at work because of this whole thing. It comes down to that Percy Weasley fight in some ways. You know? Like, yeah, the ministry's watching us, you dumb piece of shit, is what he said to Percy. So I do think, like, that's what's so scary about people in power that don't care about logic and that just care about, like, sort of their personal power. Like, he never at any point has any character in what he's doing. So he's clearly competent, right? Because he's using all these tools very effectively to govern Hogwarts.
Right.
But at no point, so say he truly was an idiot. Let's pretend. Let's thought experiment. Say he was an idiot and he was like, there's no way Voldemort's back quite yet. But he had admitted multiple times before that he didn't believe Voldemort was truly gone. He didn't do anything at any point, like even on the DL, because I actually could respect trying not to cause mass panic without full proof.
Right.
Like just coming out and being like, Voldemort's back. I mean, that would cause panic.
Cause them to lose their shit.
To be fair, it did.
It did.
Because that is how it came out. But like, he doesn't take the Dementors off control out of Azkaban, which we know he has control over. When he knows he's not even fully in control of the Dementors. Again, let's take the Voldemort thing out. Say he didn't really believe Voldemort was back. He did know that the Dementors because he calls them as his like bodyguards after Cedric turns up dead. And that's why Barty Crouch Jr. couldn't provide testimony, is because the Dementors gave him the Dementor's kiss. Now, you could also interpret that potentially as a huge cover-up on Barty, or on Cornelius's part. Like, is he just covering up that Voldemort got back under him by doing that? I don't know. I don't think so, though. But either way, he clearly, either he's misusing the Dementors or he doesn't have control over them. And he now has physical proof that even him, Minister of Magic, the most powerful political figure in the wizarding community, can't tell Dementors no, and they'll listen. and he didn't take them out of Azkaban. That's fucking crazy, yo. That's fucking crazy.
No, period.
So he didn't do anything about that.
Yeah.
He didn't, because that was obviously later used to Voldemort's advantage, right? All the Death Eaters get out easily. Piece of cake from Azkaban versus it being Aurors or something. Right. So like we see these multiple examples of like he could have done, or speaking to the half giants, or anything he could have been doing on the DL, he didn't fucking do. And that just shows that evilness. Like, it's all about power for him, but he doesn't have any character or integrity. Like, I don't think he even cares about the wizarding community, honestly.
Honestly, I would agree. Like, because if he was truly like an idiot and was stupid, I don't think, well, I don't know. It's complicated to say. I would imagine that if he was that stupid, a lot more things would have gone wrong and he would have been out of office sooner.
Yeah.
You know, like, period. And the fact that he's stuck around for 13 years until basically he was like, oh my goodness, I fucked up so much, or like, whatever. I don't know. We don't know exactly why he left, but he basically sees the writing on the wall. It's like, I need to get out of being like Mr. Magic.
So my understanding is after it was like Voldemort was in the Ministry of Magic itself, and a bunch of Aurors came in, and they were like, I saw him in the again, in the movie it's portrayed differently, but it was actually an Auror or like a ministry worker who's like, oh my god, I saw Voldemort, he was just right over there, I swear to god. And the minister's like, yeah, I saw. And then he's like, he actually is like, arrest Dumbledore, can you believe he's in there? That's his first reaction, actually, really. But it talks about when he's talking to the Muggle Prime Minister, he says that everyone's been asking for his resignation for 2 weeks, for a fortnight. And 3 days ago, he did resign. So it took 11 days for him to resign, is my understanding. And so I think that just perfectly encapsulates the fact that like he was definitely forced out. I don't think it was even a writing on the wall. I'm pretty sure it was like
you done fucked up.
Not have done whatever the impeachment equivalent is, but like it was like, we're going to if you don't. So like he was like, he literally says something about like how he's never seen any like the wizarding community so unified in something in a long time. And it's because they're realizing he's been gaslighting and lying to them for a year. Because no one's that stupid.
Yeah.
Just no one's that stupid. And it turns out, of course, Dumbledore is right about everything. Giants are getting used again, which he wouldn't go negotiate with. In fact, he probably has passed horrible laws against the Giants, which make them more apt to join Voldemort. All kinds of things like that. But then also he mentions, I thought this was really interesting when he's talking to the Muggle Prime Minister. He says, you know, that the Muggle bridge that fell wasn't because of like corrosion or whatever. It was because Voldemort said, you either leave your position or I'll mass kill Muggles.
Yeah.
And the Muggle Prime Minister's like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why and he's like, well, I can't give in to blackmail, obviously. But he didn't warn the Muggle Prime Minister or anything. So like, I don't know what the point. I think it just again goes to show his evilness the whole way through. Even when he warns the Muggle Prime Minister that he's bringing in dangerous creatures, because by law he has to warn him that he's bringing in sphinxes and dragons and all kinds of shit for the Triwizard Tournament, he like doesn't bother to let the man ask questions about that, or like
does. He's just like, you're
no consent. Yeah, he's just like, here's the situation.
No, seriously, it's made me think of a comment I saw online, like regarding Cornelius Fudge as well, like, and you know, just the evil and corruption in the wizarding world. Like, it's very easy to see like Voldemort as like, obviously he's the big bad, he's evil, he's scary, right? But in reality, there's a lot more people like Fudge and Umbridge and in our world where it's very subtle, and you know, we have to use our own minds to figure out and realize that like they are evil.
So I agree with everything you're saying, but I do want to push back on the idea that it's subtle. And the reason I want to push back on that is like, he is publicly racist multiple times. His laws are racist. His track record's racist. He multiple times has political ineptitudes that are being showcased. And so I think I think as a society, we just have to start paying attention to what these leaders are doing.
Right.
If you just believe Cornelius when he says, oh, I'm just a cute little guy. But if you were to do any sort of fact checking as a witch or wizard in that day and age at all, you would be like, he kind of seems like an asshole, even if he looks like he's a grandpa, fatherly fashion. And so I think I don't think it's subtle. I think people are lazy.
No, I mean, subtle is kind of like the wrong word. It is more like out of laziness and lack of, like basically educating yourself. Like how some people, because of their lack of educating themselves and laziness, they might not even realize that somebody's awful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unless somebody tells them so, and even then they might not believe them. Right. And so, yeah, that's kind of more so what I'm meaning to get at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so this whole thing comes back full around to me. The beginning of the episode we asked, is Cornelius Fudge an idiot or evil?
Mm-hmm.
He's evil. Would be that's absolutely, I think, the judgment of the podcast is it's not, he's using weaponized incompetence, but to use weaponized incompetence, you have to be evil. You're using it as a manipulation tactic. We see him at no point do anything to protect the Muggle world from various things that he himself actually does, like bring in a fucking dragon for no reason for a child contest. Gladiator bullshit. We see him take no steps to protect others, just time and time again. And we see that he is competent when he wants to be. When he's afraid for his own political position, suddenly, we're very competent. So I think he's absolutely evil. And I think you could make a strong argument that Voldemort was only able to take over as easily as he was, that this only became a war where children had to be the front lines because of Cornelius's management of the Ministry of Magic. And I just think you can't be that racist without being evil. I really just don't. And so I just think it's so obvious that Cornelius is evil. And I think we need to stop giving him that benefit of the doubt of like, oh, giggles, it's all fine. Because if we do that, it's harder to want him to suffer the fate that he should have suffered.
Period. Wand drop. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Do you have, before we move into FanCorner announcements, is there anything else you want to say?
Just, I would encourage us all to hold people accountable. I think, I'm not saying there's not stupid people in the world. Obviously, no one's saying that. But just by law of averages, most people have to be average intelligent because that's how we get to the averages. And so I think holding the people around you and people in positions of power accountable is the only way to protect yourself and protect your communities. And so, I mean, even, God forbid, you have a Cornelius Fudge boyfriend. Fuck that guy. He did not just fuck your laundry up on accident. He's evil.
Yeah.
Stop giving people benefit of the doubt. When they persistently show through their actions that they're inconsiderate asses, they're probably just inconsiderate asses.
Period. Mic drop. All that good stuff. She's always on point and better with words than I am. So.
Whatever. You're great with words.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. But I agree with what Rachel said. FanCorner announcements. What do you have to tell us about right now?
So I have a few ornaments about to come out this week. It got delayed because of the freaking, health emergency. Lame, boring. But the dragons are coming out. Dragon ornaments.
Amazing.
So we had them as non-ornaments and other ornaments. A little gold and a black one, and the gold one's like the baby one. And then also the Leaf Buddy ornaments are coming out, which is exciting as well.
Okay, if you like us, follow us on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, slide into the FanCorner DMs if you want to fight us. Just kidding.
Like to tussle.
Or, any other thoughts or opinions or any other characters you want us to talk about next. because I know for Rachel and I, this has been a really fun thing to do.
Yeah.
It's been really fun.
And also, huge thank you to everyone who answered our Instagram stories about this. We had so many people, like more than ever, actually, I think, interacting and talking with us on this topic. And it was honestly, it was really fun. Even if some of you did vote for idiot, and I know we disagreed with you, they were amazing. And we love having that one-to-one contact. So really, truly, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, on that note, everybody have a very magical day.